JJ Redick, I wanted to see your reaction because he sounds a lot like you when it's like reluctant to say that we are finals contenders.
I'm reluctant. I'll be honest with you, Knicks faithful. I'm a Knicks fan through and through. I'm reluctant to jump out there. Let's hear what JJ Redick had to say.
50. And then you've got the Suns at plus 1,400. Clippers in there at plus 550 as well. And
before that.
Like, that's their offense, right? Seasons. The Knicks offense is not a complicated offense. Generally speaking, they run some ISOs for Randle. They run pick and roll for Brunson. And most everything they do is out of that. Now, they run some fluff. And by fluff, I mean a zoom action, dribble handoff at the top of the key. Brunson cuts through. He then gets a swing pass, and they run a step-up pick and roll. It's everything ends up in a Jalen Brunson pick and roll or Julius Randle ISO. Like, that's their offense, right? You need shooting around that offense. You need bigger defenders. OG, I said this at the time, great fit. They go 14-2 in January. Their defense has been spectacular. Hartenstein has been spectacular.
I like how he said that, like he knew 14-2 was going to happen. You didn't know that, did you? Knock it off, JJ Redick.
Spectacular. The Knicks are for real. The Knicks are for real. Love that trade. And by the way, this is the DraftKings Sportsbook odds.
Tommy, what's up, Tommy?
Pre-trade deadline. So we are recording this at 3:13 p.m. on Thursday. These are the odds as of this morning. The Knicks basically seventh best odds to win the NBA Finals at plus 2,500. Just to go through these real quick. Celtics, Nuggets, Bucks, all at...
just briefly, I just wanted to get something off. Real fast. We see a lot of guys with podcasts, former players, right? We see a ton. I'm not going to go through the list because I'll probably leave somebody out, but there's a ton right now. And all subjective, all whether you like it, you dislike it, whatever, it's content and it's out there for us to digest, right? JJ Redick is the only guy that is auditioning for a head coaching job every time he turns the mic on. Every time that mic turns on and he sits in front of Tommy and whoever he has in front of him. I don't even care about the guests because he brings some really, really solid guests onto that Old Man in the Three podcast. But every time I hear this guy talk the game of basketball, break down what's going on in the league currently, I feel like it's an audition, it's an interview to be a head coach in the NBA. Remember, I said it here. You may have heard it somewhere else, but remember right here, Knicks Rehab, Flea is telling y'all, the next 2 to 3 seasons, you will see JJ Redick on the sideline coaching an NBA franchise in some capacity. Remember, I said it here first. Fabian, go ahead.
Well, he did. He was trying to coach the Toronto Raptors. He didn't get the job.
He didn't get the gig.
Why do you think he didn't get the gig? No, why do you think he didn't?
Me personally, here's how I feel. I feel like Masai is the head of that ship, is the head of that snake. He makes them go in terms of front office construction, in terms of roster construction. He does everything for them. I feel like Masai does not want to allow JJ to cut the line. He does not want to allow him to skip the line. So he did not put him in a position to be a head coach. Now, that could go, that could be contradictory to Jerry Stackhouse. Jerry Stackhouse won a G League championship as the head coach or the assistant coach next to Nick Nurse. I don't know if he was the head coach or the assistant coach, but Jerry Stackhouse was in position to be a head coach in the NBA. Right. And Masai Ujiri didn't give him an opportunity. He went with Nick Nurse, right? So what I'm saying is that I think Masai Ujiri, is in a spot where he doesn't want to allow anybody to just skip the line. I think he appreciates going through the grind, putting yourself in a position to become a head coach. Because to be honest with you, had he not, he could have very well made Jerry Stackhouse the head coach of that team, right? He could have very well went after Nick Nurse went left and decided to join Philly. He could have very well hired JJ Redick without any coaching experience. He could have just did that. It's not like it's not going to be the first time that we see a former player get a head coaching job without prior coaching experience. It happens, right? You got to have a certain cachet. 2 of the best point guards in NBA history, 3 of the best point guards in NBA history got head coaching jobs without any coaching experience. Steve Nash, Jason Kidd, Isaiah Thomas. These guys just got head coaching jobs without sitting next to somebody. Chauncey Billups, right? Like, you have to have a certain cachet to do that. Maybe Chauncey was sitting next to he may have been an assistant coach. I may be wrong about that, but there's a couple of guys that come to mind right now. And then there's some guys that got to go through the grind. I think Masai Ujiri is a proponent of guys going through the grind. That's why JJ didn't get the job.
So Darko, this guy Darko, what did he do?
I would like to know his past history, but I'm almost sure he was an assistant coach or a head coach at some point in his coaching career. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Darko Rajovic. Career history as a coach. He coached a lot in
overseas.
In Europe, looks like Tulsa 66ers though, but an assistant for the Oklahoma City Thunder from 2014 through 2019 from the Phoenix Suns 2019 2020, and for the Memphis Grizzlies from 2020 to 2023. So as of recent, he might get, who might get credit for him is, and he was an all-star assistant coach during the NBA All-Star game for 2014. So you know how that goes. This guy might get credit for him. What's the guy from the Pelicans right now? I mean, I'm sorry. Did I say Pelicans or the Thunder? The Grizzlies. All right, who's the Grizzlies coach?
Taylor Jenkins. 2014, he was with the Oklahoma City Thunder. That's what they said?
Yeah, 14 to 19.
So Scott Brooks and Billy Donovan, both those guys, right? Both guys. Scott Brooks was there, and then Billy Donovan comes in. So both those guys and Taylor Jenkins. So can you give me his name again? Rajovic?
Darko Rajovic.
Rajovic. I want to get it right because everybody deserves to have their name pronounced correctly. Rajovic, he's under some good stock, right? Billy Donovan is a respected head coach, still has a job to the day. Scott Brooks is on the bench right now. He's next to Chauncey Billups as his assistant coach. And who do we say? Taylor Jenkins is still the remaining head coach for the Memphis Grizzlies. So he's got some decent stock. So which is why he's the head coach of an NBA franchise to this day. That's why I feel like JJ didn't get that opportunity with Toronto. But I would not be surprised for JJ Redick to be a head coach on the sidelines in the next 2 to 3 seasons. Would not be surprised.
The first person I think of when I think of JJ Redick is like a super nerdier, cooler. Like he looks like my favorite show ever is Mad Men, and with and Don Draper. I forgot Don Draper's real name, but he was in
You're a lunatic, but I love that.
Yeah, no, Mad Men is just the way it was written.
It was just hell of a show.
Yeah, Anthony Weiner, or Matt Weiner that wrote that. I think he was on the staff of The Wire and The Sopranos. I know it's an HBO show, and HBO should have had Mad Men, which would have made it crazier, but AMC got it. But that's what he reminds me. He carries himself with that 60s elegance, JJ Redick, but he's really a prick like Pete Campbell. He looks like Don Draper, but he's really a prick like Pete Campbell. And he's a super cooler, nerdier version of Steve Kerr for me. Steve Kerr was a guy, he totally impressed us on the airwaves. When they say he was gonna be a head coach or a general manager, I was like, yo, I don't have to agree with everything he says, but he persuades me every time he speaks. And JJ Redick is similar, except when he just goes crazy with the new school versus old school. Like that's when you lose me, because it's
that's where he doesn't show a lot of balance. He shows a lot of favoritism to us meaning today's player as opposed to yesteryear. I'm not really a fan of that guys played against plumbers kind of thing. I'm not a big fan of that term. I get it, but I'm not a big fan of the term because there's basketball players from this era. There was basketball players 30, 40, 50 years ago, right? So let's, we could talk about and people in the comments, people that are watching right now, Fabian is not a proponent of the game evolving, y'all. He does not believe in evolution of the game. That's what you said. If I'm saying it incorrectly, correct me. I'm going to put you in a position to explain that take. Well, explain that to us.
What I mean is that when we throw the word evolution around, all of a sudden NBA fans who failed and dropped out of whatever science class in 9th grade, starting in 9th grade, maybe even 8th grade, all the same people that did that dropped out of science class, that cut school, all of a sudden are science majors and have studied evolution. No, that's not how evolution works. Evolution does not mean you automatically get better because the time just took place and that's what happens. No, a lot of things happen. We evolved in the skills of what they allow today. How can we evolve? How can the big man evolve at posting up if you're no longer allowed to do that? Basically, they're restricting you from doing that. So if they put a ceiling, a cap on the post game, it cannot evolve. So that means survival of the fittest. What are they allowing to be strong? The skilled players. So if you were Ralph Sampson, you would look way different today. Ralph Sampson again was the OG to Bobo and Wemby today. We have seen this before. It is nothing new. Is my point.
7-4, y'all. 7-4.
So when we talk about evolution, we don't talk about de-evolution. We don't talk about the fact that it can get worse too. It's not just the fact that it gets better. It can get worse, by the way. And evolution it doesn't mean better. It means change for the better or worse. You evolve as a person. It doesn't mean that you actually. When we use the word, we tend to use it as
there's a positive connotation. There's a positive connotation behind the word. Yes, Fabian. Agree.
So, and bringing it back full circle, JJ Redick is speaking to the evolution of the Knicks, the great evolution of the Knicks. They're so good right now. I didn't get to that part of the video because I can't find it, but they're so good that they're basically a conference finalist in his opinion. And in your opinion, you can expect and project the conference finals with ease. Both of you guys can, but you're scared. He's scared. They're so good that they have him so shook and scared to say that they are a finals contender. That's how, because we're not used to them being as good. And I saw it again, like I told, the last time I felt this way was the Boston Celtics 2 seasons ago. They're about to make the finals. Oh, wait a minute. Nobody's playing as good in the league. This is crazy. Same thing with the Knicks right now. When they beat the Heat, the way that they beat the Heat, oh yeah, nobody's playing as good right now. They're not. And then Julius Randle lands on his shoulder. And it just, I felt like I said that night, I was Icarus flying too close to the sun. And I dropped. Boom. Because I felt it. Like we are that good, healthy. It's just we have the personnel. You're matching the coach's playing style with the personnel. Going back to your original point, why Stephen A. Smith is a moron for saying it's not a big deal to have Tom Thibodeau left with zero excuses as to why we're going to go to an 8, 9, 10-man roster on a nightly basis. Do not tell us these guys are not available to play. These are your guys. This is not Kemba Walker with no cartilage in his knees. No disrespect to him. This is not Fournier. It's not any of these guys that are one-sided players on the offensive end. No, Bogdanovich is that, but like you said, we're going to get to that in a second. He's a competitor. Alec Burks was here. If you didn't want him here, you would have said so. You definitely would have said so. And that's why this is important for JJ Redick and everybody like yourself who's scared to call him a conference contender or a finals contender. They're right there. I don't see when you compliment your team like that, and especially your coach. Zach Lowe just came out and said, I can't believe the Knicks look like the single most competent team in the NBA. That's a hell of just a revelation, a realization. Like, damn, Zach Lowe saying that because he's another Knicks fan who's caught up. He's a Knicks fan, certified journalist, worked for the New York Times, worked for whatever the hell the Ringer was called before it was ESPN, before Bill Simmons on Grantland. Zach Lowe said this. I know he's going crazy just like us, but I ain't scared to say it. That's the difference. I know what I see. I'm willing to fight you for it, fight you over it, and then you tell me why we're not, but you got to prove me wrong. You got to prove me wrong why healthy. You got offensive rebounders to extend the offensive game that we have. JJ Redick broke down exactly what we do on offense. It's very simple, but we look to extend the game with offensive rebounds, get another 14-second shot clock, and play the running game like they do in football. That's what this is. And on the defensive end, we got 2 or 3 guys that are going to go close out the defensive possession. We're closing out every single defensive possession, and we play the slowest pace in the league damn near. You're not messing with us. They can't mess with us.
I fully see us when we get rolling, when we get fully healthy, because health is a huge issue for us right now. When I see us fully healthy, I can absolutely see us finishing games. Brunson, Bogdanovich, OG, Randle, and Mitchell Robinson. I could fully see us finishing games with that lineup on the floor, right? Fully see us being able to finish games with that lineup on the floor. So, again, like I said, doubles and singles. Yeah, the big names that have us talking, the big names will take over the back page. The big names will be the topic of NBA TV and First Take and Undisputed and Get Up and all of those kind of shows. Yeah, the big names will be those topics of conversations. But I would much rather be a conversation in late May going into June as opposed to a conversation right now in February because we went and got a big name and it doesn't work when playoff time comes. I would much rather do what we're doing than worrying about, you know, clicks and views and what's gonna bring the attention and the eyes to the New York Knicks. What works? What works?
No,